Hey y'all, welcome back. Propaganda and misinformation are like pretty big deals on the internet right now. That shit spreads so quick it's hard to keep track of and properly assess it all. Probably the clearest moment where we saw disinformation was a problem was the Stop the Steal stuff, where they were throwing out misinformation so quick, people literally couldn't debunk it fast enough. Like some right-wing internet influencer would point to a video, claim that it was election fraud to their millions of fans. An hour later, somebody would point out it was a musician or a food caterer unloading their gear, but before the person who claimed it was election fraud was forced to redact anything, they'd already moved on to another dubious claim. And no amount of quick debunking mattered because the disinformation had already spread. So like, okay, we're on the same page. This shit is a problem. For that reason, today I want to look at a piece of blatantly false propaganda that came across my timeline due to, let's call him an inside source. I then want to talk about why someone might be motivated to create a falsified image, and I want to take y'all through the process of verifying something's validity. Not that it's a tough process, I'm not an expert, I am but a simple boy, but I thought it might be helpful to show my work for anyone who's looking to replicate this process. So, oh, and before I show the piece of propaganda, let's drop a content warning. Whenever you're talking about stuff from these white nationalist types, things can get pretty dicey. So know that we're going to end up touching on anti-Semitism, general racism, and race baiting with a violent nature to it. So continue at your own discretion. I also want to make 100% crystal flippin' clear before I show you the meme that a white nationalist made it. I'll obviously show proof for why that is later on, but I just wanted to make sure that none of you mistook for even a second that this piece of propaganda comes from the group that it claims to reign from. Without any further ado, let's take a look at today's specific piece of propaganda. This image, let me get my face out of the way. If Chauvin walks, it's time we start that word, white sons and daughters. Can I get a fucking yikes in the chat? Now, Chauvin's guilty charges on Tuesday really put any speculation about rioting to rest, because while it's possible that he gets a reduced sentence or some such on appeal, at time of recording. And for all the conservatives out there sticking to the talking point, oh, well, people would have been violent if this had turned out differently. Well, to them, I say,
I guess we'll never know.
But at the same time, we shouldn't take the guilty verdict as a moment to ignore this meme. For the sinister reasons it exists are still with us. There's still people looking to stir up trouble through lies like this. So let's get into the process of debunking this meme, starting with the only places it seems to exist. I found this image circulating around some alt-right/white nationalist-y corners of social media, and I will reiterate, my sources on this matter remain confidential, but the origin seems to be this singular Gab post from Gobond the Destroyer. Yeah, while we're here, just for the sake of it, let's look at what kind of posts this guy makes over here on Gab. Here's the creme de la creme, insinuating some sort of collusion between a Jewish judge and a human trafficker who was also Jewish. And these public posts only go back so far, and I refuse to start a Gab account. But I was on here yesterday and I saw the man in the span of a few hours posted the N-word twice. So when he claims that this image has been circulating Black Twitter, I feel confident that I can trust this guy as a source for my news. But, as you might be thinking, that's a poisoning the well kind of argument. It's still possible that he could be correct even if he's an undoubtedly awful piece of shit. And you're right, pointing out that he says the N-word a lot does not inherently mean that this didn't happen. So let's check. Did this actually happen? And the answer to that question is no. Let me walk you through how I fact-checked this image. I go over to Twitter, search terms like capping white sons and daughters. The only thing you find is these people quoting the phrase as they make fun of how inauthentic it is. But okay, maybe that's a little too specific. If Chauvin walks. While the phrase is used a lot, It's mostly a descriptive usage, not a prescriptive usage, like people saying bad things are going to happen. Is anyone emotionally prepared if he ends up walking? But as much as I scroll through this feed here, I find very few people arguing that whatever might come if Chauvin were to walk is in any way good, let alone anyone arguing that it means we should, to white kids. Plus, if you pair the phrase "if Chauvin walks" with other keywords like children, you get nothing. This is literally just a lady talking about how sad it is to see children testifying about George Floyd, which is correct. That is very sad. Let's even expand that to kids. Children's a bit too specific. Oh, same thing, just talking about kids at the trial. Let's go white kids. Oh, look, nothing containing the phrase "if Chauvin walks" and white kids. Let's try white people. The only violence I see advocated in these results is this right-wing dude presupposing that white people will be murdered in the streets. Now, I could keep doing this all day, but I hope the point is clear that when you look for search terms on Twitter, which again, the initial claim was that this was all over Twitter, you can't find many threats of violence, and you definitely don't find people calling for white kids to be murdered in the street. And to be fair, keyword searching isn't everything. It's possible that there was a combination of phrases used that I'm just missing with the specificity of my search, but it should be pretty telling that these combination of phrases can't find anything resembling the bold accusations the meme makes. But again, that's just an assumption. So to back up my claim even further, let's go to the most conclusive way I can think of to fact check. Reverse image search. Now, when we drop this bad boy into the tineye, we see that a few dozen results come up. And you might take a quick glance at that and say, well, shit, I guess it's settled. Those angry black people have been sharing this meme all over the place. But hold on a sec, let's take a closer look at these results. Computer, enhance. Manual zooming, that's what qualifies for enhancing these days. You'll see in the little previews here that all of the resulting images are the base of this meme, but without the text. In fact, you see at the top here, it's an Adobe stock image of 3 varying dark skin tones that somebody came around and put the Black Lives Matter, Black Children Matter text on top of. And every single result is the generic stock image minus the inflammatory text. None of these advocate for the abject violence that this meme shared on Gab claims was all over the place. And if we use other reverse image search engines, we find much the same. Just the generic stock photo on social media accounts with none of the inflammatory text. Now, when you use Google's reverse image search function, it does find a few posts, but it's all people on Gab or patriots.win just reposting the meme. Like this right here on Daily Crow. It just says there's an image circulating and puts the image, but conveniently fails to include any links to the source of this image or any screenshots of the original post. Which, if you're using your noggin correctly, should be the moment your skepticism kicks in and helps you realize this shit fake, dog. If this were a real thing someone actually posted, there would be screenshots. The person's profile would be put on blast. There'd be links to the tweets, even if the links came up dead because the tweets were deleted. Because if you're actually interested in documenting a real thing that happened, you make sure to get receipts. Like if I wanted to document this brain-dead take from Ben Shapiro, I would copy the link and share it in any posts about it. I would screenshot the tweet with the date and time involved. What I would not do is make an image with his quote on top of it. That's just not something real people do when they're trying to document something that actually happened. So while it's possible that someone deleted the original tweets, and sadly there's not a recent enough Wayback Machine save to cross-reference if something was deleted, in this instance, the burden of proof is on these chucklefucks on Gab and whatnot to prove that this exists with receipts to show that it actually happened. And considering the lack of results outside of their media sphere, on top of the absence of any screenshots of an actual person saying this, it is actively harmful to approach this claim in good faith, and it's safe to conclude that some far-right weirdo out there made this shit up for the sake of causing drama and raising tensions. So that was my process of fact-checking this meme, and hopefully you got something out of it. But as it turns out, I didn't even need to check. The meme itself screams, "I'm a white person and I made this shit up." Anyone whose head isn't up their echo chamber can tell that this is false, but allow me to explain exactly why. First off, I'm online a lot. One might say terminally online. In fact, I'm terminally online in spaces that involve a lot of people frustrated at policing in this country. So trust me when I say no one on the left would sit down to express their frustration at police or the possible outcome of Derek Chauvin's trial by searching BLM stock cartoon, scrolling down till you'll find one that suits your interest, and then type out this weird ass phrase in motherfucking impact font. That's just not a thing an actual person would do. Impact font went extinct like a decade ago. It's like a dead language at this point. Like, lefties are way better at memes than this. Even if this were a thing somebody advocated for, which again, nobody verifiably has, we'd either just say it in a text post, or we'd put the phrase over like Luigi with some goofy Microsoft Word font or something like that. Point is, the meme just looks lazily slapped together, and not that it's lazily slapped together by an earnest lefty creator, but that it's a lazily put together attempt at faking a meme. So let's talk about the other part of this that seems fake, the word choice. As we saw a minute ago, the phrase "if Chauvin walks" is common enough. We saw that in a variety of different contexts. But the sentence, "it's time we start capping white sons and daughters," man, that just ain't natural. Like, let's try to put ourselves for a second in this imagined person's mind. If the idea of Chauvin walking stirred you to such anger, a much more natural phrase would be, "if Chauvin walks, we riot," or, we'll start shit. And we can, discuss the morality of those responses if we'd like, but that phrasing is much more natural in opposition to capping white sons and daughters. And in fact, let's for a second imagine the completely wild, not true possibility that the author of this meme, who is again fake, did want to seek out white kids. The infinitely more natural phrase would be just that, to call them kids. The focus on sons and daughters is such a weird wording that it should be raising red flags in your brain. This isn't how real people talk, man. Now that we've fact-checked to see that this meme is indeed fake, and we've taken just half a second to look at the meme and can tell from its wording that it's fake, now the question becomes, why would somebody make this up? The answer is simple. The creator clearly wants to use memes like this one to stir up racial tensions. It could be this Gab account that originated it, or it could be somebody else just in this person's network. Either way, the reality is that the image preys on the fears of xenophobic white people with the expressed goal of stirring them up. Now, what do I mean by that? As I said a moment ago, the phrase capping white sons and daughters doesn't make much sense from the perspective of a fake BLM activist, but it makes perfect sense from the perspective of a white nationalist trying to stir shit up. You see, Save the Children is a powerful motivator for bigotry. It can aim in disarming somebody's skepticism, whether it's for criminalizing gay people, criminalizing trans people, or in this case, race baiting. Reactionaries respond really well to threats against their children. Now, before you jump to conclusions, I am obviously not saying that caring about your kids makes you a white nationalist. Don't be an idiot. Don't try to essentialize that argument to put words in my mouth. That's obviously not what I fucking mean. What I do mean is that white nationalists have a weird, oddly specific relationship to phrases like "save the children." Now, I'm not exactly an expert on these types. If I were, I'd have a philosophy degree in the bread tube bisexual lighting TM. But I have noticed white nationalists foam at the mouth when a thing is posited as a threat to their sons and daughters. Perhaps because to them, the continuation of their white lineage is like the most important fucking thing. Evidenced by the infamous 14 words' emphasis on preserving whiteness for children. So the framing of proposed violence toward white kids is meant to help stir people into a panicked frenzy. If you tell all your followers those scary black people on Twitter are calling for your sons and daughters to be killed, maybe they stop listening to valid complaints from BLM. Maybe they join a counter-protest. Maybe they're more hostile to black people in their day-to-day lives. But worst of all, maybe they see a black person walking around, perhaps armed, as is their Second Amendment right, or maybe just looking kind of threatening, and this person's follower feels so immediately threatened that this person might be coming for their kids that they lash out. You see, if you try to convince a person that black people are evil, they might turn you away. We generally don't buy that line of argument these days. But if you tell your followers, black people on Twitter are definitely thinking about killing your son and daughter, trust me dude, they're really saying that, well then you've just helped lay the groundwork for racial agitation. The objective point of this meme is to make racist or racist sympathizing white people scared of and hostile towards black people. If you're agitated, you're more likely to act in ways that would continue their white nationalist goals. Don't believe me? Think I'm being a bit too hyperbolic? Let's return real quick to this guy's "the Jews are conspiring together" and claiming that Native Americans are universally savages. Perhaps from this we can garnish some large-scale ulterior motives that this person might have, some actions carried out that they might find desirable. And from that, we can see exactly why somebody might try to falsify an image like this and get it to spread. Point is, misinformation do be out there running amok though, and since some of these littler memes fall through the cracks, it's important for us to keep ourselves sharp and make sure we debunk these falsehoods when they arise. But anyway, thanks for watching everyone. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to toss me a like and subscribe down below, but if you really want to help support me, you can join me over on Patreon. Patrons get access to a bunch of goodies, exclusive behind-the-scenes content, early versions of every video, and even some Patreon exclusive videos, like this Patreon-only Q&A. So be sure to join me over on Patreon if you want access to all these goodies. Speaking of Patreon, I want to give a big shout out to my Piley Benton biggest boys, Floof Pants and Nilic Elites. Be sure to join me on this specific tier if you want to have your name read out at the end of every video. Thanks much everyone, and I'll see you next time.